It's no doubt at this point that the Mascot Horror genre is in a troubled state. And here's why. As we all know, Mascot Horror has been in a really, really troubled state ever since Poppy Playtime. There's been a problem with it, and I'm going to tell you why I honestly think of how we can honestly, that somehow that Mascot Horror might get back on track, and of how it can get back on track. Let's look at this. Let's get into this. Alright, let's start with the first problem of why I think that Mascot Horror games are just being ruined. Let's start with this. Let's look at this for a second. Let's look at how much Mascot Horror games are just getting ruined right now. Like the Backrooms has already, it's been already ruined. Backrooms absolutely just got ruined. And Rainbow Friends is getting ruined by, freaking Lanky Box, who absolutely makes some of the worst some of the worst stuff known to mankind. They absolutely just suck. They look like they I do not like watching their videos. They're probably the stupidest YouTuber I have ever seen in my entire life. They're just stupid. I hate them so much. And Garden of Banban's being ruined by Lanky Box again. And Poppy Playtime's being ruined by Lanky Box, even though they're making more videos on Garden of Banban and Rainbow Friends right now. And even FNAF's being ruined. Not by Lanky Box or children's channels, like Enchanted Mob, like the Minecraft animation channels. They're ruining FNAF. They're ruining FNAF by marketing, making FNAF, getting it to kids with the Minecraft animations. That's what they're doing. So that's why it's ruining it. And the problem is that FNAF's not meant for kids. It's not intended for that audience. I know that kids like it because of the color characters, but that's not the full reason why. The reason of why, it's not exactly security breach either that is getting more kids into FNAF. Not just that. To me, what's getting more kids into FNAF is the Minecraft animations. I think that those are what really getting kids into FNAF in the first place, which they should not be doing. And why? Well, FNAF's entire backstory is about a man co-owner who makes animatronics in Pizza Place and lost his son by one of the animatronic malfunction, and then he gets driven to madness and starts killing a bunch of kids and stuffing them into suits. And even in FNAF 2, he leaves their entire bodies all over the place. And then eventually his daughter gets killed too by William. He built the animatronics to actually kill and crush children when no one's looking around. So that right there isn't just an absolute just as the FNAF games went on, starting with even the end of FNAF 4, they started telling the story from a more emotional point of view, even more a sister location. The Pizzeria Simulator ending to me is just so emotional. To me, it's a really an emotional story. At the end of Pizzeria Simulator, it's so emotional. It has lots of human emotions. And that's why FNAF story is not meant for kids. And kids, by just telling them about FNAF and hearing about the story, it's ruining their lives. If you're gonna kids, they're just gonna think, they're gonna be absolutely terrified. They're gonna have night terrors all the time about how someone lured them to the back in a mascot costume and killed them. That's what they're gonna have nightmares about, because that stuff's not meant for kids. It's specifically not. But now, since Lanky Box, in the not even the YouTube, the children's channels in Minecraft animations, they're exposing the kids to that. They are, which they shouldn't be. But Poppy Playtime, Rainbow Friends, and Garden of Banban, they are all just absolutely just market their game towards kids, whether you think that's the case or not. And they're both all made for cash grab and money. That's all. And here's one of the reasons, if Poppy Playtime didn't exist, then I guarantee you, we wouldn't have this like trend of like bad games coming out all the time. I guarantee you that if Garden of Banban, if like Rainbow Poppy Playtime wasn't a thing, then I guarantee you that then the other devs would be encouraged to make cash grab games, because now, like in the past, Mascot Horror, even though Bendy had some flaws, it was actually a good game. And Baldi, and even Hello Neighbors devs, despite what Hello Neighbor became and how much it got criticized, the devs were actually passionate. Scott Coffin was passionate. Tiny Build was passionate. Joey Drew Studios was passionate. But basically, games and developers of Baldi's Basics were passionate. Everything around there was actually passionate about what they were doing, and they made the game out of passion, effort, and care. Except Hello Neighbor, it was made out of care and effort. It was made out of in Five Nights at Freddy's and Bendy are probably like the best of Mascot Horror. FNAF for me is probably the best, and Bendy definitely becomes after, because Bendy in the Dark Revival, from what it looks like, I'll be excited to play it because I got it in March for the Steam Spring Sale, and I gotta see, I definitely gotta play it. It looks like a game that I would enjoy. In Bendy and Five Nights at Freddy's, that's why I don't think that children's channels or FGTV or whatever should have milked Bendy, which they shouldn't have, because Bendy and FNAF should not be for kids, and kids shouldn't enjoy them. But then, some part of the reason of why in like Poppy Playtime to me is just the sole reason of why I think that these games are now cash grab, because it encouraged devs to actually put merch stores in the games, like linked to the games, and you can click on there, like they're at launch, and their merch is overpriced, which proves that the game is made for money and nothing else. Like they had a merch button, like look at Garden of Banban. They had a merch store button, like at launch, and like it was at like a launch, like the first day. And Poppy Playtime, after when the Let's Players started making their videos on it, that's when they put their merch button out on there. So yes, Poppy Playtime and Garden of Banban, they have just merch store buttons on them, which is just so weird. It's just, also to me, it just seems like so goofy that they, and just so stupid, and it proves that their games are honestly made for money. I feel like if it wasn't for Poppy Playtime, I feel like that Mascot Horror would have actually continued to be passionate. And what really ruined kind of the scare factor to Mascot Horror was Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. I mean, Poppy Playtime's probably scarier because it had better scary elements. Chapter 2 has some scary elements, and I think it looks pretty good. And I think Chapter 2 looks like it has some scary elements here and there. It does, but in Security Breach, at least Poppy Playtime looks like an abandoned place. Security Breach looks like all bright and colorful. Designs look like they honestly just catered to kids like Poppy Playtime. So Security Breach is less scarier, but what it really encouraged, Security Breach could probably even more ruined the scare factor to it for me. Security Breach, but this time they didn't. But Poppy Playtime probably did it worse, because they encouraged the devs to actually just have a trend of bad games to come out. And while I think that, I honestly just don't understand of why we keep letting the games get popular. We just can't, even though, I remember, Donko, I don't know, hang on, let me, look at this for a second, I'll be right back.
guys, Stalker back again. Hope you are fantastic today, and welcome to Garten of Banban 2. This is a sequel to the original Banban that we played about a month ago. The second one is out already, and they are already promoting the third one at the bottom right-hand screen. Now, looking at the wall on the main menu, it looks like some new characters have been added. What the heck? Oh my god! Well, at least you dropped the key card. Okay, well, it was definitely longer than the first. That's it. And there you go. God, there's the jellyfish. That's Stinger. Okay. So this is going to be Garten of Banban 3 with the jellyfish, the Stinger. Okay. I mean, it was longer than the first game. It was okay. Once again, just like the first one, it was okay. I didn't have a bad time. Playing it. So, they've already kind of teased who's going to be the main enemy in Chapter 3. And it's the jellyfish, you know. We even got the QR code saying, do not trust the jellyfish. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Take care. Lots of love. Let me know your thoughts about it. And I'll see you all next time.
Alright, now I'm back. Yes, even Dako even expressed his feelings about the game and said that he even laughed some of the parts most of the time because the game is so laughable. Like even some Let's Players, even though most of them might express their feelings, even if Let's Players wouldn't exactly play these games, even though Let's Players do play these games and pick them up, that even though if Let's Players never even played these games, even if they stop playing the games, which I doubt they're gonna do, children's channels, they're gonna still play these games because they're kiddie. Horror, Mascot Horror is supposed to be mascots turning into absolutely dark killers who want to stuff you into an animal suit. That's what horror is supposed to be, not kiddie, weird kiddie mascot. Instead of a toy, it's some weird mascot thing. That's not what horror is supposed to be. And I think how I saw it in the beginning, children's channels started playing FNAF, but then once they figured out it was about murdering children, that they stopped. But then the other does realize they can make it more kid friendly, so that way that children's channels will actually milk it. In which, by the way, FGTV actually definitely milked Hello Neighbor and Bendy to death. I'm not joking about that. They did. But after that, that's when Mob Games came in and created Poppy Playtime. And is where that's where they finally, then that's when they got the idea that now Poppy Playtime, Rainbow Friends, and Garten of Banban, they're just made just gold for just children's channels. That's really it. I think that mainly children's channels are part of what actually was ruining Mascot Horror. They're a part of it, no doubt. They actually milk these things a lot. They do. And also, one thing I also want to tell you is that Poppy Playtime is definitely part of it. It's part of what's wrong with Mascot Horror right now. It's part of it. It's part of it what's wrong with Mascot Horror right now. Definitely. It is what's wrong with it. Yes. And Poppy Playtime is hated because of what Mob Games has done in the past. They were both it's drama with Acro Coaster and the NFTs. That is what actually was ruining Poppy Playtime. I think that yes, it's the controversies are really ruining Poppy Playtime. Even though it kind of winds down a bit, it really still kind of continues of how Poppy Playtime was copying Bendy, which I think it does. If you it's so similar, of how it's story, it's just of how the kids, they turn into the mascots. They're literally a copy of how the people from the animation studio turn into the monsters in Bendy. it's so similar. It's literally just a copy paste of the story, just put in a Poppy Playtime. And Poppy Playtime copied Agricoaster's game called Venge. They did that too, which I'm not happy about. And I don't think that Mob Games actually decided to copy Venge out of spite. I just think that they started drawing inspirations from Bendy and Venge and decided to copy it out of just laziness. Yes, I think they did. Like even though the staff of Mob Games might not be all that bad of people, I honestly still think I just don't exactly like Mob Games because of what they've done in the past and their motives for the existence. That's what I think. And also another thing that's wrong with it is Garten of Banban. Alright, Garten of Banban is absolutely just one of the worst in Mascot Horror, indie horror, not just both of those, but horror in general. That game literally just sucks. It's the Garden of Banban sucks. It's literally an 8-minute long. I can speedrun the entire game without like using editing it, without like running and stuff like that. Like, it can easily do it. It's such an easy game to play. Like, it's just so easy. Its gameplay is easy. It literally looks like it's just so stupid. It absolutely just sucks. And like by looking at the Garden of Banban character designs, by just looking at a glimpse of them, they literally look like color blobs. Like the Opila bird's the only design, not literally just some random polygon. And Opila bird looks like Opila bird looks so stupid. Garden of Banban 2's even worse by considering that I spent 2 hours playing it because just by having your drone, using my drone a bunch of times to use things, and of how much of the gameplay is a chore, and Garden of Banban 2 is just incredibly tedious. Like the Captain Phil section in Garden of Banban 2 is tedious because you have to keep every time in the section you have to keep starting over and over and over again. Bambolina's, I think the classroom scene was a good idea for gameplay, but it gets too tedious because every time when you die, even if you get one question wrong, I think the only reason the Garden of Banban 2 the classroom things exist is because of Baldi's Basics. The classroom in Garden of Banban 2 is also just really tedious because every time if you get every time you get an answer wrong, you have to listen to her talk over and over and over and over and over and over again. It just gets so tedious. It's just so boring to talk to her over and over again. Yes, at the beginning of Garden of Banban 2, the first puzzles actually was kind of clever to me, even though actually they didn't give you much instruction. It was actually kind of a clever puzzle, but all the other puzzles besides that one is literally just god awful. The other puzzles just absolutely just suck. Most of the time, the other puzzles are just pushing a bunch of buttons with your drone. Just doing all this, get more key cards. That's literally the only thing that's literally all the other puzzles throughout the entire game. And the Nam Nam section is honestly not half bad. I actually kind of liked it, and it's actually kind of enjoyable how being dark all over the place and of how you don't know how you keep going wrong every time. That's what I actually kind of like about the Nam Nam section is not actually half bad. But then when Bam Bam hits you, it absolutely just turns to just be a stupid turn. The rest of the game is honestly just really pain. It's just a pain to play, and it's such a waste of time. After that, it's just such a waste. It's just a boring amount of time that is literally just wasted. Wasted. It's just wasted entirely. It's just wasted. But the best thing, even if make a video on how Mascot Horror is dying and of how Garten of Banban, you're still making it more popular. You are, which is why there's two halves. The lover half is wanting to do it with passion and in giving good advice and critique to the developers, while the other half is just doing it for the views. Yes, the other half is literally just doing it because they know of how much negative reception movies or games get, how much views, so and making people more aware of it, and more people more people saying how it's dying. And no, you know what I always thought ridiculous? Mascot Horror, it's not dying. Like, I never understood that. Like, Mascot Horror, it just feels alive as other. And I know it's like its current state of Mascot Horror and indie horror is like really it just stinks right now. It's bad. But seriously, is Mascot Horror, like, is it dying? No. Like, the only reason people are even saying that it's dying is to just get people to milk out more videos on it. That's the only reason why people are even, like, the other half is even saying it in the first place. Just for views, that it's dying. And it's not dying. I mean, there are truly good Mascot Horror games out there. Like, we're getting FNAF Plus this year, which I think is going to be really good because it looks like absolutely terrifying. And even though my only problem with FNAF Plus is what it looks like is that the animatronics, while absolutely terrifying, just don't really work in the pizza place. Like, Bonnie's eyes look like it would scare the children. It just looks like it wouldn't really work in a pizza place. That's the only problem. But there's Bendy in the Dark Revival and Choo Choo Charles that came out in December, which I feel like I need to play, especially since it's on sale. I think that Charles looks terrifying. So yes, there still are good things happening in the genre. I think that Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 of what it looks like its direction of how like Mob Games is afraid that might get a mature rating, I hope it keeps that up. So there are truly good things happening in this genre. There are good things. But the only problem is that we keep getting games like Garten Bam Bam so much attention because we just feel like we just need to just push out more videos. And I want to say, I'm not even going to play Garten Bam Bam 3. Like, I watched the trailer for it, and it looks absolutely just terrible. There's another character on the Roadster, and there's like a girl version of Nab Nab now. Okay, seriously? And it looks like not like a kindergarten at all. Like, it's like a beach in the trailer with a car. That makes no sense. Okay, if this is a kindergarten, how do you have a beach and a car? Like, how do you put a beach in, like, how do you put an ocean in, like, a beach in a kindergarten? That is literally something that you cannot even do in real life. Like, take out all the kindergarten literally just take out all the ocean water and, like, pour it in to, like, a place where you can put it in and, like, dumped animals inside of it to make it look like a beach. That's not how a kindergarten works. Garten Bam doesn't even look like a kindergarten properly. It literally looks like a, I don't know. It's not even like, it looks like a toy factory. It literally looks like, it literally looks like a setting in Squid Game. Like, the location looked like they were just copied from Squid Game. Like, they look like they were made in Squid Game. That's what it looks like. They look like they were made in literally just Squid Game. That's what it looks like. Which is why and honestly, it seems like to me that the best thing to do is just not support Garten Bam Bam 3. Just don't even think about even make fun of it or just like hate on it in any way possible. Like, just don't hate on it. Just don't make any videos on it. I don't think that this video is going to get as much, going to blow up for many views, but for like anyone who's watching or if knows about Garten Bam Bam has hated on the first two games, I'd recommend not hating on the third one, because I'm not going to do a video on the third one saying about, ooh, it's so bad. I'm not going to play it either. Because if I play it, then everything's going to go more downhill. And I'm not even, and I have no interest in supporting Rainbow Friends Chapter 2. Like, and also one thing that is another problem that I forgot to put in my last video is that let's talk about the lore for Mascot Horror games. FNAF has one of the most complicated lore. That's really complicated lore, and the most complicated thing about it is that it's hard to piece together. While the FNAF lore is complicated, of course that carried on to other developers. But of course, games like Hello Neighbor, Bendy, Poppy Playtime, Rainbow Friends, and Garten Bam Bam, they have absolutely just complicated lore. That's probably more complicated than FNAF's lore. Like, it's just so confusing to understand. Like you're just given a simple tape of children screaming, just like indicating that they were kidnapped, and then that's literally it. Like, and the lore itself is just so confusing all the time. And there's just like these like passports in Garten Bam Bam. Like, it's just such like confusing lore that's like so hard to understand. And the only reason the lore exists for most of these games is game theory. Game theory is the only reason why. That is why it only exists. Because if we just make the lore just really complicated, just really dumb, and just really stupid, then Matt Pats, he's going to have to talk about it. Make like 50 game theory videos on it. Well, he might not do that. They have obviously made videos on these games before. Like, it just, like, because, like, I don't understand, like, most of these games just really need lore. They don't need lore. They don't need, it worked for FNAF. Like, I don't understand, it worked for FNAF to do the lore because it was actually an interesting and actually getting emotional story FNAF was starting to get, and actually felt like interesting. It actually felt like something that was meaningful and actually interesting, which is why people like it of how they do today, including me. But now, in this, like, but now these other games, they try to replicate that lore, and most of the time, their lore's not nearly as good. And why it's not nearly as good? Because it's just a boring and just generic story. Like, their story is literally just like, ooh, like that. Their lore and story, like, it's just so simple and basic. Like, it's just such a short story. It's like, ooh, there's like this toy factory that did wacky experiments with kids, and now there are monsters that are roaming around with kids' spirits. Then that's literally the entire story. And then you have to save them. That's really it. There's no build up to how the companies became to be or how it happened. It's literally just that simple of a story. Well, that is why that most of these games, the lore worked for FNAF, but it doesn't work for many of these other games, which is why nobody cares. Like, you don't see as much people talking about Poppy Playtime's or Garden of Banban's story, because you can literally explain their story. Like, if you speedrun to tell their entire story, you can do it in like 5 minutes or less, because it's so simple. Like, that's what my main problem with most of these games are. Like if you think about it, the lore for these games are just incredibly complicated. And the Garden of Banban 2 was just a waste of time. And Rainbow Friends, let's start with one thing. When I go to the store with my mom or my dad, or go to the store with any of my relatives, uncles, like my grandma, my grandpa, mom, or dad, I just go to the store with them. Even though I don't go to the store as much with my grandma, mostly my mom. When I go to the store with my mom, I just see kids holding Huggy Wuggy plushes with them every time. And Rainbow Friends, that's literally what I see them carrying around all the time, which proves that it's proven that these games are indeed successful with children. And the only kind of audience that these games get is simply children. They get it. It depends. They're only kind of relevant. And let's start with the one reason why that FNAF was really the only Mascot Horror game to ever stay popular for so long. And why? Well, FNAF has a bigger fan base. It has a fan base of older and younger. And it actually had a bunch of fan games that made people keep interested. And new lore that kept installing. That made the story more interesting. That made people wanting to keep coming back. But the only problem with the other games is that their entire fan base is literally only children. That children is the only one really demographic who only cares about these games. So the devs only keep the relevancy by just providing merchandise and stuff like that, and steer far from what the original idea of what their game was. That's what they do, because they know that the game can become successful by doing nothing. But the only kind of, these games, YouTubers make videos on them for 1 to 2, they don't even stay alive for 2 months, and they just die shortly after. They just fall into complete irrelevancy. At this point, I honestly think that while Mascot Horror is not dying right now, I think that in a few years, I honestly think that Mascot Horror is just going to fall down. Horror fans are not going to care about it anymore. They're just going to give up and just be like, ooh, I'm going to give up on this. It just sucks. Yes, and even Garden of Banban, they actually make FNAF look like trash. They make people hate FNAF because it's Mascot Horror. That's, more of the problem. Like, I just wish that you'd honestly just make a better game. But you don't have, but because there truly are good things. So for horror fans, there are good things like Bendy and the Dark Revival or Choo Choo Charles, like out there that you can actually play for horror fans. And just don't play Gertrude the Bam Bam. It's really simple. In the current state of modern indie horror, what I'm really saying about that is that of why people, like, I think people are getting it wrong by saying of how it's dying, because it's truly not dying right now. The only reason for me is why people are saying that it's dying. It's definitely going downhill, but like not dying. I mean, seriously? And the only reason they're saying how it's dying is because they want to get more views. Because that way then people will more think that the genre is actually dying, which is not. And I honestly don't understand of why we're actually saying it's dying, because I never actually thought that Mascot Horror was dying. It's going downhill, definitely right now with some of the newer titles that are coming out. But for right now, just ignore these games. Just ignore them. Like, just ignore them. Just leave them alone and just don't trash on them. Because if we all just keep trashing on them, then it's still going to continue, because you're still giving it more popularity. So that is why, for me, that you just need to just need to just leave these games alone. And so in the end, how can we save Mascot Horror? We can just ignore some of the newer titles that are coming out in the Mascot Horror community, and just try to ignore children making the game popular, and don't play Gertrude and the Bam Bam, don't play the games, and just ignore the Let's Player videos, stupid Lanky Box videos, just ignore all of that. And then if it's a bad game and some people play it, then just don't talk about it. Because if you keep talking about it, then you're making it more popular. So for me, that is one way that we can save Mascot Horror. Also, one way is that maybe you can making good Mascot Horror games, and maybe someday one Mascot Horror game will come along and maybe save the genre from going downhill completely, and encouraging more devs to make cash grab games. And I'm just gonna say that making something for money or any other reasons besides passion isn't a bad thing at all. But as long as the creation itself is still good and enjoyable, as long as it looks like there's care and passion. But most of these other games, they literally have proof, even though they might not look like it in the game itself, like Poppy Playtime. They might not look like a sellout throughout the game, but their merch stores and their business practices prove that their games are made for money, which is why it's going downhill. So for right now, the best thing to do for Mascot Horror is to just not play it. Just ignore the games and just don't play them. So it'd be good for you to follow this advice, and maybe Mascot Horror will be saved someday. But for now, bye, and I'll see you in my next video.